we'd like to introduce the introducers. Catherine Meehan and Brian Marsh. But before I do turn it over to them, there are thanks on behalf of the department. These include first the hard work of the Jan Monk Distinguished Visiting Lecturer Committee, which is Sarah Moore, Jan herself, Sally Marston, Dao Xin Tong, Dao Xin, and a special thanks to the staff, Liz Cordova, Riz, who works in our office, who make arrangements and really make all these things possible. So first, a warm thanks to the committee. A warm welcome from me, and please, Katie, Brian, you have the floor.
Hard act to follow. Our first encounters with J.K. Gibson-Graham, the pen name of Julie Graham and Kathy Gibson, began in noise and confusion, like most good things do. For me, that opportunity arrived in the company of John Paul Jones, a few shots of bourbon, and the chance to corner Julie Graham in an English pub. And I would wager that most of my best intellectual moments include at least two of those ingredients. Julie was a keynote speaker for the Alternative Economic Futures Conference, was surrounded by a hive of activity. Post-capitalist politics was impressed, the buzz was fierce, all the things people wanted to talk, to chat. But Julie took the time to listen and to encourage a young graduate student, to mentor me with empathy and enthusiasm in the corner of the noisy bar. Her words were infused with keen interest and mutual respect, a reflection of Gibson-Graham's ethical practice of feminist politics, of their collective efforts to build community economies, of their goals to cultivate non-capitalist subjects, and of their desire to construct our economic futures through a lens of possibility and hope.
So, my first encounter with, I don't know if it's them or she or how we talk about this hybrid being that is J.K. Gibson-Graham. My first encounter with J.K. Gibson-Graham was not in person. It was reading The End of Capitalism, their 1996 work. I was actually at ASU. I was at the Local to Global Conference, which is the kind of radical conference they hold there every year, and was trying to work through things. And some of the most simple and almost naive things that they were bringing forward were so compelling to me, and have still affected me to this day. Things like their little diagram of the ladders and the branches of the trees, to say, because for so many of us personally, or certainly people we work with, our people don't have ladders that have been built for us to get anywhere. And the metaphor of a single ladder to get, in the case of economic development, in their case, with so many things, to simply put the metaphor forward that there are actually branches and that there are multiple pathways to go forward. And you can think differently. Thinking differently can allow you to act differently. Some things like that have been so compelling for so many people, including myself. But I catch on slowly. So at first I didn't even know that they were, I thought they were some person who had hippie parents and couldn't decide whose name they would get. It took me a while to realize there were two people. But once I got it together, their work has reminded me to seek commonality between places in relation to global capital. That's what I tend to do. But also look for diversity and difference within and among places. So Gibson-Graham, as well as their intellectual kin, in the case of Kevin St. Martin for me, but so many other people that have influenced people like me through them. So there's already generations of them circulating around now. They've been crucial for thinking through the possibilities and challenges for household producers using unwaged labor, extended families, informal business ties, to survive and to overcome economic crises. For me, that's been the greatest contribution, to insist discursively and politically, and of course this is not different things to them, that these differences may be as viable a path to economic sustainability as any challenge to capital on its own terms.
As mentors, researchers, and authors of numerous publications, Gibson-Graham have crafted a language of the diverse economy, making visible a range of transactions, labor, and enterprise that are otherwise thrown out of the economy, and radical geography's vision of class politics. For Gibson-Graham, what is to be done involves both theory and sweat, the theoretical reimagination of class, the practice of participatory action research, the actualization of diverse economic possibilities everywhere, from Massachusetts' Pioneer Valley to the Philippines. The point is, of course, to change it.
And to speak not about me, my last name is Marx, but about Carl. A little bit about Uncle Carl. In his economic parables on the bees and the spiders, and I can give you the chapter and verse if you'd like to look it up from the Gospels themselves. Karl Marx tried to explain, he was doing good things, I guess. He was trying to define how labor was the sole source of value, right? Chapter 1, volume 1. In his story, he expelled the work of non-humans from the category of the proletariat. Fish swimming in rivers, firewood landing on the forest floor, whether or not anyone could hear it, and busy bees accumulating honey. All those things were cast out. All those critters, all those actions, they all became free gifts of nature within the system of Marxian political economy. And the bees and the spiders were the specific examples of how they essentially didn't have a subjectivity. They couldn't change how they did their work. They couldn't conceive of or transform their economic practices. And in light of what Gibson-Graham has done for discourses, for practices, and for struggles of humans in the diverse economy, we are hoping that this Anthropocene project will give a space for the bees and the spiders to come back in.
Please join us in welcoming our 2010 Janus Monk Distinguished Lecturers in Feminist Geography, J.K. Gibson-Graham.
Well, thank you so much, Brian and Katie, for that wonderful introduction. Kind of giving away the punchline already. And it's a great honour for us to be here to perform this lecture, which we were actually invited to do, I think, in 2005. And unfortunately, we're unable to do it then because of a whole series of life events. So it's just so wonderful to be here 5 years later, if not exactly J.K. Gibson-Graham 100%, at least 75%, because Julie's voice is not very strong at the moment, so I'll deliver the lecture, but she'll be part of the interactions and discussion afterwards. It's a great honour, as I said, to be here doing the Jan Monk Distinguished Lecture, especially for me, who intersected Jan right at the very beginning of my academic career, I think in 1976. So it's indeed an honour, because Jan has been such a mentor, really, for so many women in geography, but particularly those of us from the real antipodes, the antipodes as we always called it, until we realised that the journal was called Antipode. And this talk touches base in both environments that Jan's worked in Australia and in the US. So I hope it resonates with many of her experiences. Okay. Well, in this paper, we're trying to do something that we're really not ready to do, which is to begin to think regional development as a way of belonging differently in the world. Now, unreadiness has to do with the scale of the environmental crisis that is creating a new we and convening new publics on this planet. No longer can we avoid the challenge of how to live differently with others on the earth. In the words of ecofeminist Val Plumwood, if our species does not survive the ecological crisis, it will probably be due to our failure to imagine and work out new ways to live with the earth, to rework ourselves and our high energy, high consumption and hyper-instrumental societies adaptively. We will go onwards in a different mode of humanity, or not at all. Well, Plumwood's challenge is seemingly directed to all of humanity, but we read it as targeting some more than others. Most notably those living in Australia and the United States, who have the largest carbon footprints in the world, and whose lifestyles would require 3 or more planets, perhaps even more if replicated globally. So Plumwood is thus directly interpolating the amalgamated US-Australian J.K. Gibson-Graham, calling us into action as specific located beings. Our familiar slogan, "Start where you are," has never had a more personal or planetary resonance. But how do we start in the US and Australia to enact a different mode of humanity? How do we proceed as researchers who specifically engage in rediscovering and reenacting economy in particular places and regions? We hope that our familiar methods will still serve us here. For years, we've undertaken projects of deconstructing existing local economies to reveal a landscape of radical heterogeneity, populated by an array of capitalist and non-capitalist enterprises, market, alternative market and non-market transactions, paid, unpaid and alternatively compensated labour, and various forms of finance and property, a diverse economy in place. In this diverse multiplicity, we find glimmers of the future, existing economic forms and practices that can be enrolled in constructing a new economy here and now, one that's more focused on social well-being and less on growth and profitability. This kind of experimental, exploratory, place-based method still seems like the way to go for us. Well, our methods might feel right, but the way we use our core theoretical categories, subjects, communities, places, betrays our alignment with the old mode of humanity. No matter that we treat these categories as empty of prior meaning, as openings for politics of possibility and becoming, they're still fully human-centred. Each time we invoke them, we perform the human-non-human binary, alongside that of subject-object, constituting a world made up of conscious and acting humans and unconscious or passive others at every turn. Well, feminists and others have seen such binary thinking as deeply implicated in the crisis of life that now engulfs our planet. In Plumwood's view, the binary habit of thought creates hyper-separation. Bruno Latour sees it as producing hyper-incommensurability. According to Jessica Weir, thinking hyper-separation places humans in relations of mastery with respect to Earth others and limits their capacity to respond to ecological devastation. We lose the ability, she says, to empathise and see the non-human sphere in ethical terms. We gain an illusory sense of autonomy. Well, we're accustomed to deconstruction as a method for breaking down binary hierarchies, opening up a field of radical heterogeneity. But what's required here is not something that deconstruction can provide. What critics of separateness and separation thinking are asking us to do is to think connection rather than separation, interdependence rather than autonomy. In this way, we may imbue our categories and practices with a different mode of humanity. Well, thinking connection involves sensory and intellectual receptivity and suggests for us a number of ethical projects. One is the project of actively connecting with the more than human, rather than simply seeing connection. Interestingly, this ethical act is not just the prerogative of human beings. A wonderful article called Watching Whales, Watching Us describes the grey whales of Baja initiating a connection with humans who are receptive and responsive. Whale scientists note that this is relatively new behaviour. The whales seem to have learned that people in that part of the Pacific no longer intend to harm them. A mother grey approaches the whale-watching boat and checks out the passengers, turns away briefly and returns to her newborn calf, who raises its head above water and looks the author in the eye. "I'd never felt so beheld in my life," the author says. What is this encounter but a moment of recognised kinship? The world, my kin, my twin. In the words of Nicholas Compridis, to acknowledge the world as one's kin and twin is to see that a change in one's condition is coextensive with a change in the condition of the world. Or, as Varela would say, to change ourselves is to change the world. Our whale-watching receptivity, so different from our former murderous mastery, is a world-changing stance, coextensive with whales reaching out in connection. A second project of thinking connection might involve embracing what Jane Bennett calls a vital materialism, in which humans and non-humans alike are material configurations. She says materiality is a rubric that tends to horizontalise the relations between humans, biota and abiota. We are all just different collections of the same stuff: bacteria, heavy metals, atoms, matter, energy, not separate kinds of beings susceptible to ranking. A vibrant materiality is impersonal about the locus of agency, which involves the behaviour of assemblages rather than discrete beings. The connection of human and non-human is then not only reciprocity, kinship, resemblance, it's a shared identity of a substantive rather than symbolic sort. Well, each of these projects of connection constructs a form of belonging. The first is like belonging to a family, suggesting an affect of love and an ethic of care, one that seems to go both ways. The second involves belonging to a heterogeneous monism of vibrant bodies, a vital pluriverse, and attuning ourselves more closely to the powers and capacities of the more than human. Each form of belonging offers a sense of relief. It's not all up to us. Something else is caring for us and the earth, or contributing vitality to our complex co-being. Bennett frames these two slightly different orientations as a distinction between environmentalists and vital materialists. If environmentalists are selves who live on Earth, vital materialists are selves who live as Earth, who are more alert to the capacities and limitations, the jizz, of the various materials that they are. If environmentalism leads to the call for the protection and wise management of an ecosystem that surrounds us, a vital materialism suggests that the task is to engage more strategically with a trenchant materiality that is us, as it vies with us in agentic assemblages. So the question that arises for us is, well, what might all this mean for our practice of regional development, and for the action research that is our avenue of entry into that practice? Well, our answer is we have no idea. Although we see the importance of thinking connection, of convening wider publics, and enrolling lively matter in the hybrid research collectives that we hope will emerge. And Bennett opposes environmentalism versus vital materialism, but we're going to try and keep both of these balls in the air as we think through these issues. Well, fortunately, there are great precedents for proceeding in the face of not knowing how to proceed. Eco-philosopher Freya Matthews points to the Chinese sage who proceeds by cultivating a sensitivity to the field of influences in which he is immersed. She calls his practice conformational. He inhabits a jigsaw world, everything shaped by and shaping everything else. Matthews' jigsaw puzzle metaphor conveys a close-up, piecing it together, participatory approach to understanding or performing the world, rather than a big-picture spectator approach that captures and reduces everything via universal laws. Matthews calls it strategy, as distinct from theory. The strategic piecing-it-together approach might offer a way to begin our project, since we're at a loss when it comes to thinking about the big picture of more than human regional development for the Anthropocene. So we'll start with a few jigsaw pieces and see where we go from there. So we're going to show you two short videos, technology willing, and we seem to have got it working, but you never know. And we'll start with an experiment in regional development led by individuals and institutions that are motivated in part by an ethic of caring for place and environment.
Cooperatives is a network of employee-owned businesses. We are looking at a new paradigm for creating wealth in the Cleveland community. We will create a network of for-profit businesses that will hire from the neighborhoods, and the employees will own the businesses that are created.
Can't be just another initiative. I think for all of us, we want this to have meaning and scale and to be transformative. And it's just that simple.
This is more than a job. This is an ownership opportunity. Having people able to participate in the creation and access to wealth that would normally be excluded is really the best part of this.
I envision being one of the owners to make the decision about everything and expanding.
That looks these projects in the community long term.
This is opportunities program. You know, this is not me getting back into a work habit or something like that. This is opportunity for me to get ahead
it isn't just a job, it is their future long term. And we think that can really help bring about some positive change in the neighborhood.
I had some good people out there that believed in me, and they gave me a second chance. And so I can plan for my future now.
They are really willing to put the hard work necessary to make a difference in their own lives and the lives of their families.
They're revitalizing their neighborhood and taking ownership of their future.
We are investing through our purchase of services in the employees who will end up owning the businesses.
Over the next 3 to 4 years, we think we can create somewhere 500, 600 jobs in these low-income neighborhoods of Greater University Circle.
What we're doing is catalyzing something. We're catalyzing, a whole new grouping of companies.
In order for people to be truly vested in their community, they have to have ownership in the community. And ownership requires wealth.
That's not construction, that's not salaries of their staff, that is to purchase food, it's to outsource housekeeping of those that do that, and it's for things like laundry.
We're market-driven, but instead of being investor-driven as well, we're worker-owner-driven. And we determined pretty accurately that there's 250 million pounds of healthcare bed linen available annually.
With recent legislation, Ohio has a mandate to create 60 megs of solar generating capacity in the year 2012. And right now there's 2.
We're targeting several megawatts over the next couple of years, and that's on the order of nothing that's been done in Ohio to date. It's going to be a great day to be knowing that we are helping to generate some power in a clean, environmentally responsible way.
We're talking about a 5.5-acre greenhouse that will produce about 5 to 6 million heads of lettuce annually and another 300,000 pounds of herbs annually.
The way that the employees will generate any personal wealth is from the business being profitable.
The bottom line is we still have to produce quality product, we have to keep our customers happy, and we have to continue to gain revenue.
This is a laboratory for a new kind of economic development.
It's actually a career, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to be involved with it, because it's not just a job.
This is different. It is higher risk. It's not based upon the social service model, but the business model and the co-op ownership model.
It could serve as a model, not just here, but other places in the same way it helped in Spain. It could do that here too.
It offers a bootstrap strategy for pulling yourself up with your own resources.
As this company extract solely your wealth.
Let's know we kind of learn how to run everything and also teach other people what I've learned.
We're not asking for dollars to stop at one company or 2 companies. If we can keep going to 20 and 30 companies and get to the scale that they experience in Mondragon, that's, I think, one definition of success.
In 5 years, where this is going to go, I think most cities is going to jump on or want to look at what we're doing here and use us as a model.
Cleveland wants to be where the world is going, not where the world is.
Okay, well, most regional development projects follow the export-based model, where enterprises in sectors like manufacturing and tourism are recruited to bring in dollars from outside the region. These dollars presumably circulate through the region, producing the famous multiplier effects of employment and income growth, before eventually exiting to purchase goods and services outside. And this kind of multiplier effect is what we've seen as economic development. Well, the Cleveland example we've just seen differs from this model in a number of ways. First, it targets local rather than export markets. And the criticism that non-exporting regions are just taking in each other's laundry is creatively turned on its head here in this urban experiment. Second, Cleveland is experimenting with a diverse economy approach in the sense that the new businesses are worker-owned cooperatives rather than capitalist firms. These businesses create local rather than absentee wealth and won't relocate in search of cheap labour. In the Evergreen experiment, Cleveland is emulating the Mondragon cooperative complex, a hugely successful grassroots regional development experiment in the Basque region of Spain. Starting in 1956, the Basques of Mondragon began establishing worker-owned cooperatives. You going to move on? my upsider here is shirking. Starting in 1956, the Basques of Mondragon began establishing worker-owned cooperatives, first in manufacturing and later in all the other sectors that are key to a thriving regional economy: finance, agriculture, social services, healthcare, education, including a university, housing and retail. As you saw in the video, the Mondragon cooperatives now employ over 100,000 workers and gross around 20 billion euro per annum. A key strategy for building the cooperative complex has been marshalling and pooling the surplus the workers produce. That they produce that surplus over and above their wages and costs of production. Rather than being distributed as profits to capitalists or dividends to shareholders or bonuses to managers, surplus is distributed to the workers themselves, who have democratically decided to deposit it in the Mondragon Bank until they retire. This gives Mondragon a large pool of funds to finance the development of new cooperatives. The vision here is of work creating wealth that, rather than being siphoned off, can be used to further the livability, prosperity and dignity of a region. In addition to being guided by the goal of creating employment, Mondragon's economic decisions are shaped by shared ethical principles that are shown on this slide. And I won't linger on these, but please note number 3, the instrumental and subordinate character of capital. Pretty amazing. What we mainly want to highlight is the open-ended nature of such a list. The Cleveland cooperatives, for example, have added care for the environment to whatever principles they have adopted from Mondragon. In fact, they've put it very high up on their priorities. So here we have a quite well-developed scenario for regional development that is driven by human intentionality and realised through ethical human practices of cooperativism and environmental care. Now, the second video we want to show is very different. It portrays what we could see as a vibrant materiality that is leading sociality, offering many possibilities but no clear pathway to regional development.
Tamara Giltsoff consults top companies on how to become more sustainable. She was voted one of the top 35 businesswomen under 35 in the world in 2007 by World Business Magazine. She trades in a digital virtual currency called VEN.
It begins to put a value on intangible exchanges, I guess. I have gained VEN by making introductions to other people or doing favours for people in the network.
Dan George produces concerts, TV appearances, and award shows for big recording artists like Britney Spears when they debut a new CD. Here, building contacts at a Whitney Houston concert on Good Morning America. Traveling the globe for his job, he also uses VEN.
With fluctuating exchange rates, if you have a certain amount of VEN, you know that you can sort of count on it when you're working between countries.
The VEN is a virtual currency based around post-national online social network hubculture.com and their brick-and-mortar hub pavilions, like this one in London, where community members trade in VEN for goods and services, connections, and knowledge.
Just trying to give more value to the way that people collaborate with each other rather than just asking favours. You can give value to that collaboration by charging or being paid in VEN for your knowledge.
You can see the movement inexorably towards peer-to-peer finance. People will trade individually and independently among each other all around the world instantly and digitally. It's going to happen. There's no denying it.
In case you're going, what? The VEN founder has an interesting theory about rock, pebble, sand currencies. The dollar would be a rock. A corporate currency would be a pebble, and any peer-to-peer currency would be sand.
The ocean, in the sense of the internet, breaking down those rocks, essentially breaking down those pebbles, makes everything sand. So we think that at some point there will be millions
different currencies. Essentially, everyone will have their own virtualized personal currency, and will trade on some sort of, NASDAQ for personal currencies.
A bold prediction, no doubt, but more and more individuals and communities are experimenting with peer-to-peer currencies as a way of taking control of their own personal financial transactions. They're not trying to replace the dollar so much as they're trying to develop tools that make their money work for them and not for, say, the Fed or investors. The new currencies also reflect a changing landscape for scarcity, what any currency is based on. This busy technology sales executive uses a product called Attent that has deployed a digital attention currency called Serios. Here's how it works. Serios are embedded in Microsoft Outlook and attached to emails to get the attention of busy people who have a glut of emails.
Here's one that's 45. I got one with 2, one with 15. I'm going to read the one with 45 first. We'll add 45 Serios to my account as I open the email.
On the other hand, when the attackers say 50 Serios in an email to a colleague, the program crunches that colleague's open rate to know he needs only 5 Serios to even read it, and knows there's a good chance the colleague will read the email quickly with 50. In this marketplace for attention, he only gets 100 Serios a week. Users can earn Serios in other creative ways, say from people bidding for a conference room.
I'm going to apply 100 Serios to this and tell everyone on my team we need a room.
Or the currency can be a reward system.
Hey, I need a great idea. We've got a client, can't quite get them to come aboard.
The best new idea gets 100 Serios from the boss. There is also a currency of reputation and experience. An online social reality game called ACOA lets you earn kudos points by completing experience currency that allows people to level up their game persona. The game's founder, a venture capitalist, says in a time when information itself is abundant and, like it or not, more and more free, there needs to be a new definition of what is becoming scarce.
Attention is obviously one. Trust, reputation becomes scarce. But ultimately, what is scarce is true moments of authentic connection. Because in today's world, we have information overload.
He says the trick in gift economies is to build new market mechanisms around these new scarcities and markets for attention and reputation and intimacy. All things that are valued in online social networks.
And the rise of the social network and the rise of the attention economy and many of these spaces, we use all kinds of other formal systems to be able to encode and remember the value that we as a society create with each other as we work together.
Author and economist Eric Harris-Braun has been trying to create the technological equivalent of open source software for currency.
What we do is we create an alphabet that allows any community at any size to issue currency and declare what the meaning of that currency is and what kind of value it's tracking. Then we will have the possibility of an economic democracy.
If anything, the democratization of finance is required because of the democratization of everything else.
Douglas Rushkoff, author of Life Incorporated, has been trying to start a digital currency centered around Craigslist.org, what he wants to call Newmarks, after the founder, Craig Newmark. He is pushing for an ecosystem of local and complementary currencies.
The centralized currency was developed by monarchs in the 12th or 13th century to prevent peer-to-peer transaction and promote individual to central authority transaction. What people want is the ability to transact. The money they want to use to transact is also being used by speculators to extract value from communities. And it's not a tool that can do both jobs well.
Down the street from Rushkoff's office, there's a restaurant in Hastings-on-Hudson in New York that's created a local currency card as a way of developing the initial capital to open a new restaurant called Comfort. Its owner created a VIP card full of Comfort dollars to generate $25,000 in initial capital that he couldn't get from a traditional bank.
If you would give me $500 to purchase the card, I would activate the card with $600 on it.
Now, chef owner John Halko uses the VIP card to trade for web design services from a company down the street.
So there was an X amount of money that I owed them, and she came to me, she goes, John, just give me a couple of VIP cards, and let's call it a day. So basically, it's like bartering. The same thing with my lawyer.
The concept of creating knowledge in a finite community is gaining leverage. While it's still very early in the process for members of the hub culture community, they're hoping as peer-to-peer transactions become more prominent, funny money called Ven It won't sound so strange.
There's something in this clip that speaks to us of new possibilities for regional development. I think what's striking is the inventive vitality unleashed by personal computers and the internet. Open source internet access is facilitating new forms of sociality at an unprecedented level. While some might be wary of the quality of that sociality when it comes to Facebook or Second Life or trading in kudos or Cereos, this clip illustrates how it has enabled the flourishing of alternative currencies that facilitate exchanges based on new registers of value. As the restaurant example shows, these currencies are being used as a regional development tool to strengthen local enterprise, to increase access to services in cash-poor communities and plug leaks of value out of those localities. The rise of complementary currencies over the last 2 decades has been fuelled by the technical capacity for intense interconnection over space enabled by the internet. Whether it's trading in scarce attention or accounting for haircuts and massages, the internet is an actant in regional development. An actant never really acts alone. Its efficacy or agency always depends on the collaboration, cooperation, or interactive interference of many bodies or forces. Now, at the regional level, the internet facilitates complex economic experiments, such as, for example, Brisbane's Food Connect. This is a community-supported agriculture social business. Food Connect uses a website and 20 employees to link some 1,500 urban consumers in direct marketing arrangements with 80 farmers in a 2 to 5 hour radius around Brisbane, which is the capital city of Queensland. Urban subscribers become connected to their farmer producers who appear on the website explaining their methods of sustainable farming. One farmer, for example, includes a film clip with a close-up of a ladybug crawling over his hand and a description of its important role in combating aphids on his celery crop. Dairy farmers Ross and Karen describe how they spray their nitrogen-deficient pasture with whey, a byproduct of their cheese-making operation, and thereby feed beneficial soil organisms that would have been destroyed by artificial fertilisers. Implicit in the work of Food Connect is a different vision of regional development, energised by human, non-human, organic and inorganic actants who interact to produce and distribute healthy, fresh food. Overlain on this vibrant materiality is an ethic of care for both human and non-human participants. Subscribers sign up to absorb the losses usually shouldered by farmers when seasons and crops fail. Through this new economic relationship, farmers are supported, not subsidised, to provide the best possible care for country and consumers by promoting agricultural polycultures, genetic diversity, low tillage and low fossil fuel farming. As they note on their website, all this yields a local regional food system that looks after our farmers, subscribers and the environment. In Boulder, Colorado, the CSA model has been transposed into the suburb. This neighbourhood-supported agriculture initiative converts a small portion of backyards and front yards of houses and churches into a local food system. Vegetables are produced for the growers, their neighbours and other NSA subscribers, and the surplus is sold at the local farmers market and distributed to families in need. Well, all around the world, individual households have begun to take charge not only of their own food production, but also their water collection and energy generation, thereby building distributed systems. In the distributed systems model, infrastructure and critical services for water, food and energy are positioned close to the points of demand and resource availability and linked within networks of exchange. Services traditionally provided by a single linear system are instead delivered via a diverse set of smaller systems, tailored to location, but able to transfer resources across wider areas. And this last point, I think, is important for regional development, because these distributed systems can feed their surplus into regional supply grids, relieving pressure on the centralised infrastructure of modern urbanism. These materialities and systems offer a whole new sociality and spatiality. We're reminded of the intense experiments with living pioneered by material feminists that flourished at the beginning of the 20th century, as documented by Dolores Hayden in her book, The Grand Domestic Revolution. Feminists and communitarians embraced new technologies of industrial food production, mechanised cleaning and laundering and centralised heating with enthusiasm. They set out to socialise women's private domestic labour by building houses and apartment complexes whose inhabitants accessed communal dining rooms, public kitchens and laundries, built-in vacuum cleaning systems and refrigeration. Soon, however, the sprawl of sitcom suburbs became the name of urban development in the US and Australia. A whole new privatised landscape of consumption emerged based on miniaturised industrial appliances, along with the centralisation of electric power generation and water provision. The seeds of our energy-greedy ecological footprint were sown. So how do we retrofit our suburbs and reshape our high-consumption lifestyles? How might we work with the vibrant materiality that is prompting the self-organisation of diverse, decentralised currencies and local food distribution networks? The spatiality of production, consumption, reproduction and exchange is up for grabs as new technologies, old ideas and the vital capacities of human and non-human agents combine in experiments with living in a different mode. Well, so far today we've posed our questions and reviewed some of the inspirations that are at hand. Now we want to turn to piecing it together through research. Well, research is a site where new publics are marshalled around matters of concern. And university-based research is where experimentation is supported. So why not conceive of university-based action research as a potential catalyst for going on in a different mode of humanity, starting where we are, in our own regions? If we accept our belonging to a planet made up of complex matter that cuts across personhood, animality and objecthood, what does this mean for regional development and related research? We'd like to outline some steps towards answering this question. Well, first of all, in any place, there would be the task of defining the region and compiling a profile. Now, usually this includes official statistics about demographic characteristics and trends, mainstream economic structures, including capitalist and self-employed businesses, employment and income, housing provision, such as in this map which shows residential densities in Sydney, community services such as health, education and training, transport, infrastructure and local government. Our project would have to build on this regional profile, but include elements of the diverse economy, as outlined in earlier slides. Such an expanded vision of economy is not easily available. Certainly official statistics on many activities of the diverse economy are scarce. So generating a diverse economy regional profile would involve enrolling many different kinds of people to collect data about the economic activities that they care about. In the process of compiling and mapping, teams of hybrid researchers would form collective learning assemblages. Some examples of the kinds of data that's actually already being collected and mapped are these kinds of things that really come out of the diverse economy perspective. Non-capitalist enterprises, for example, in the solidarity economy here, a solidarity economy enterprises in the Pioneer Valley of Massachusetts, where Julie is located. But we could also map the unpaid labour that's being put into self-provisioning through community gardens and household gardens, such as in this map that's already been compiled of gardens in Melbourne and Australia. We could also start to map non-market transactions. And this is a map of fallen fruit that's been put together by a group who go around different cities, particularly in California, mapping opportunities for gleaning in urban landscapes. And the community rules are up here. You can't quite see them above the heart. The rule is take only what you need, say hi to strangers, share your food, take a friend, go by foot. So this idea of non-market transactions, gifting food that's already available, has carried on also in rural contexts where gleaning is becoming, or is starting to be redone, I guess, in this case in York in Canada. But we could also start to map non-mainstream forms of finance, and here's a map of the credit unions in New Brunswick in Canada. Or we could go on to look at alternative private property, such as this map, which is a map of privately owned public open spaces, POPOS, in San Francisco. And this is, then we could also start to map the kinds of commons that people work on and share. And this is a map taken from the work of Kevin St. Martin, who is working with fishermen on the northeastern coast of the US, mapping their own commons, the way in which different communities share particular fishing grounds. We could go on with examples of the kinds of mapping that you might be able to do for the particular region in which you're located. But it's important to recognise that these maps are not just visual representations of economic activity. Each one is involved in constituting or consolidating a community. The making of this map itself is the making of a different kind of economic community. The power of this mapping exercise is not only to give a sense of the mass and spread of other economic relationships that sustain our lives, it also has a performative effect of bringing this expanded, diverse economy into a new phase of being, recognised and self-recognised as contributing to regional development. Now, our regional profiling then might move on to the challenge of including the natural economy. That's insidious. How does that happen? I don't know, but I think we've got to get back to here.
That's weird.
Dan George produces concerts, TV appearances, and award shows for big recording artists.
Hey, when to close you down. I hope we've done it. Sorry.
Interesting.
Okay. There's a few glitches. Okay, there. Let's hope that's either my daughter on Skype or the Wall Street Journal wanting to tell us more. Interruptions. Okay, so we've gone through the idea of profiling the alternative or the diverse economy of a region. We might then move on to the challenge of including the natural economy. That is, all the ecological systems that coexist with us in any one region. Now again, while some of this data is available from official statistics or official sources such as topographical and geological maps, we'd need to include more fine-grained data drawing on the local knowledge of scientists and researchers in the wild. Matters of concern in any one region may have already brought citizens, species and natural systems together in a research collective. For example, drawing on the region that I'm now located on, in Western Sydney, an assemblage of concern is emerging around 8 hanging swamps on the sandstone plateau of the Dharawal State Conservation Area south of Campbelltown. I think probably the only person in this audience will know where that is Jan. These huge natural sponges provide habitat for endangered native animals and store and filter the fresh water that feeds the Georges River. The proposed expansion of coal mining under these swamps by BHP Billiton will most certainly drain these ancient storage systems. And BHP is threatening that the financial viability of its operations and its jobs for miners, truckers and port workers will be in question if further expansion under Sydney's water supply is not approved. There's a whole group of people marshalling around this particular issue at the moment. On another front, government scientists are predicting a worsening of ozone levels over the next 15 years in Western Sydney, which is the designated major growth area for the Sydney metropole, an area that already experiences higher ozone levels than the rest of the city. So on alert are the Asthma Foundation, public health advocates and community activists in the region. Meanwhile, white ibis, deprived of inland nesting grounds by drought and agriculture, have migrated to Sydney's Centennial Park and the Georges River near Bankstown. These displaced birds have started scavenging at dumps, creating a potential cross-species disease threat to humans, domestic birds and other wild birds. So university researchers and local government environmental officers are working together with the bird colonies on management strategies. Now, these are just 3 of the matters of concern that we could convene in one particular region, that of Western Sydney. Through a regional profiling activity, it may be possible then to recognise that we are entangled in webs of life and death, vitality and materiality that both constrain and enable movement. Research for the Anthropocene requires us to find innovative and creative ways of inviting ourselves and Earth others into a different relationship, one in which the familiar becomes unfamiliar and the impossible becomes possible. Dolores Hayden's Field Guide to Sprawl is an inspiring example, I think, of such an invitation. Her book is an illustrated vocabulary, an architectural and environmental devil's dictionary. It teaches us to observe sprawl as an exercise in understanding habitat, to listen for the slang phrases for everyday places that help to sharpen observation, I love the one called the Snout House, for instance. She teaches us to get a bird's eye perspective on the landscape of our unsustainable urban growth. This field guide provides one window on the vital materiality as well as the political economy that has animated the built environment we have to work with. Now, it's easy to see this landscape as an inert, durable obstruction to living differently. But our expanded regional profile might act as an antidote field guide, one that begins to identify emergent habitats, develop new lexicons, and get a worm's eye view of the possible landscapes of sustainable growth. And here we've tried to indicate the kind of transactions that might happen between households, non-market transactions and so on. And from this kind of inquiry, we might discover vibrant matter we can work with, new dynamics of change that we can move with and against. We might work with people in place to push at elements of the assemblages we are part of to enact new modes of living. Researching and compiling the Antidote Field Guide is a project that marshals a collective of concern around a vital materiality, the region. But it can also be seen as a self-organising process of more than human regional development. Such a process is already happening with the solidarity economies that are mushrooming and mapping themselves in regions around the world, such as in New York City, and this map of solidarity economy enterprises, and this one of Rio de Janeiro. Whether it's a kind of concept map like our suburban retrofit, or a map of businesses like this one, maps are actively making connections between a group of fishers who share fishing grounds, in the case of Kevin St. Martin's maps, or between solidarity economy enterprises that wish to buy from and sell to each other, such as in this map, or between businesses and the distant environments that they help to protect through purchasing recycled or organic inputs. Or, in this case, between the original indigenous inhabitants in the region of the Georges River in Sydney and current communities who have often forgotten the kind of indigenous presence that is actually still there and living 200 years after colonial settlement. These pieced together connections are the emerging habitats in which a new mode of humanity is, I think, being nurtured into life. Well, just as a postscript to this talk, ultimately piecing it together needs to be supported by an organisation. For a powerful example, we could turn to Quebec, which has been piecing together regional development since the 1990s. This project is guided by a research collective that is called the Chantier de l'Économie Sociale. The Chantier is made up of participants in the solidarity economy, or the social economy. It's the same thing to them in Quebec, as you can see in this slide. The Chantier provides a full range of research services, including continuous mapping throughout the province. It nurtures an economy that includes 20 sectors, 200,000 jobs, 8,000 businesses, and 700 financial institutions. The Chantier has government funding, which we perhaps in Australia and the US are unlikely to get. But a similar organisation maybe could be based in the university, providing training as well as research for more than human regional development. Such an organisation would extend solidarity to the more than human world, inviting scientists and activists to participate as spokespersons for the non-human stakeholders and vibrant materialities in our regions. So our questions remain. Can our solidarity be extended to the more than human? Can we welcome its overtures and challenges? Answering these questions together could usher in a new mode of humanity and a new form of belonging. Thank you.
The fact that you work together and you epitomize the values of working together in a sustained way, not just a one-off and that's it. So you collaborate with each other over many years and equitably and closely. You collaborate with students and you collaborate with community activists, another thing which not all of us do. You see strength in community and you challenge the orthodox. And it was interesting to me that these were the things I had written down at home, and we heard them all. And I really appreciate your coming. As Kathy mentioned, I first encountered her when she just finished her undergraduate career in Sydney, and I was there on a semester leave, and we talked about should she go to graduate school in the United States, and she did. And she met Julie as a graduate student, and they've been working together since then. So I'm really delighted to have you here, and thank you also to the department and all the people who've made this possible. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.